This picture shows me, Armand Denis, and my wife, Michaela, back in Australia after our Bird of Paradise expedition to Central New Guinea. We plan another ambitious journey across Australia from Adelaide on the southern coast through the central deserts to Darwin on the tropical coast of the north. The equipment? Dodge, of course. A good truck with its 3-ton load of tents, camping gear, food supplies, cameras, and film. A power wagon, the best vehicle for desert and jungle, and a standard sedan for speed and comfort. All veterans of our journey to Cape York and of our film, Land of the Kangaroo. Soon we are on our way through the pleasant suburbs of Adelaide. Southern Australia has gracious ways of living, beautiful homes, lovely gardens. The gorgeous blooms of the Christmas bush, the many shades of gum blossoms are new to us. Even while we photograph these beautiful flowers, a honey eater appears, and we get our first bird pictures. In a brief 30 minutes, how could we show you more than a few aspects of Australia? We shall skip the great busy cities, the smiling countryside, the rich farmlands of the south. Let us make our first stop at a roadside pond, one of thousands swarming with unfamiliar wildlife. For ours is to be a naturalist's journey through a country which is a naturalist's paradise. With 20-inch lenses, we photographed the shy lily-hoppers. These lively birds feed on the insects and the many forms of life which cling to the stems and leaves of the water lilies. They have very large feet, out of all proportion to their size, to enable them to run safely on the surface of the leaves. Australia has immensely rich and varied bird life. Birds of all sizes, shapes, and colors. I can only give you a glimpse of a few. Among them, some of the most beautiful finches. And the richest collection in the world of parakeets, lorikeets, and parrots, from the commonest and plainest to the rarest and gaudiest. Billabong, the typical waterhole of the outback territories, swarms with wildlife. The air above us is never empty. It is filled with the flight of birds of many species and colors. White sulfur-crested cockatoos and corellas. Nowhere except in Australia do you see by the thousands exotic birds, a single specimen of which would be in this country a high-priced rarity. another exceedingly common and yet beautiful parrot, the pink and gray galah, sometimes seen in flocks of hundreds. But here is the rarest of sights, the largest and most spectacular of the cockatoos, the Australian black. We have caught a glimpse of a blue mountain parrot. Michaela's sharp eyes have seen a baby bird fallen from the nest and helpless. One more addition to our growing collection of pets. More than once from our hide, we have seen emu, the Australian counterpart of the African ostrich. He has the same malevolent, baleful eyes, but quite different vestigial wings, useless for flight, of course, and 3 toes on each foot instead of the ostrich's 2. Another find. I thought it was a porcupine digging in at the foot of a stump, but it turned out to be one of Australia's most exotic and celebrated freaks, an echidna, a living fossil, a mammal which suckles its young as a mammal should, but which lays eggs. The echidna is also called a spiny anteater. Spiny? You can see why. For its defense, it just rolls up. Anteater? Yes, its long pointed snout and fantastically elongated and agile tongue are for chasing ants in anthills. But we must introduce you to the most lovable of our Australian pets, a baby kangaroo. Much too young to be left without a mother, we found him shivering and lost after a torrential rainstorm. He took readily to Michaela as a foster mother, and in a few days was weaned and learning to feed himself. Australians call baby kangaroos and baby wallabies joeys. We had photographed many wild kangaroos, and we knew that a joey spends most of his time in his mother's pouch, and this for many months. Our problem was to supply our little pet with a substitute for his mother's pouch. We imagined an apron with a big pocket in front. The little joey learned to answer to his name, Jumpy, Jumpy, to run or rather jump to his foster mother and to climb into his pocket home. Cozily curled up in his pocket, he was no very heavy burden to carry about, and no trouble. At first, he would not climb into the pocket unless Michaela was actually wearing the apron. Later, he recognized the apron as his home. He dived in head first and curled up on his back in the exact way in which joeys curl up in their mother's pouch. The central country, increasingly parched and desolate, often for many miles cursed with dust. We drive in choking clouds of fine abrasive powder. It penetrates our baggage, our clothes, even the mechanism of our precious cameras and sound recorders. Daily, the temperature exceeds 110 degrees, and the extreme dryness of the air causes a most painful irritation of the throat. We are entering the Gibber country, a flat wilderness of red sand, gravel, and stone. This is the desert. Near the water holes, long ago dried up, we pass many gaunt carcasses of the victims of thirst. There is no surface water left, only occasional salt pans. The fauna has become that typical of the desert. A skink, a lizard unchanged since 50 million years. This is a relic of Australia's ancient past, truly a living fossil. Two male frilled lizards, so wholly absorbed in mutual defiance and combat that our arrival at first is not even noticed. My shadow disturbs them. One runs off, skipping on two legs, the characteristic gait of these frilled lizards. The other is unafraid and full of fight. But even the courage of a frilled lizard has its limits. No, it's not a snake. It is the Australian long-necked turtle, another of the local freaks. At last, the long desert crossing is behind us. We reach green trees and living things, the fantastic landscapes I have longed to see since first I read of the early explorers, of the McDonnell Range and of Simpson's Gap. There are the huge monolithic domes, the highest, Mount Alga, towering 1,800 feet above the plains. Within hours now, we must arrive at the most spectacular wonder of Australia, Ayers Rock, and most of the hardships of the transcontinental journey will be behind us. The first involuntary stop of our journey is within sight of our longed-for objective, Ayers Rock. A bushel of seeds and dry grass clogging up the radiator. With today's temperature of 116 in the shade, it has been temporarily too much for the cooling system. What a tremendous impression Ayers Rock makes. A single lump of solid stone over 2 miles long, containing 4 billion tons of rock in the center of one of the most inaccessible areas on the earth. Its walls rising sheer out of the plains, 1,100 unclimbable feet into the sky. We worked for several weeks in Australia with the wild Aborigines, the very primitive people, said by anthropologists to be the most primitive people left on Earth, who still inhabit remote areas of the interior. Two Abo hunters, as they would be called in Australia, led us, running ahead of the power wagon, much too afraid of it to accept a ride. We followed them for the better part of a day to where their tribe was temporarily hunting and living. We made friends with them through the children, as we always do with primitive peoples. They were very shy at first, and I made little progress. But Michaela has a great gift, very valuable to me, of ingratiating herself with children and their mothers. She soon found herself invited to a turtle feast. Yes, the pièce de résistance was to be one of the long-necked turtles, a frequent item of Aborigine fare. Michaela found the going hard and the conversation stilted, handicapped by the fact that she and her hostesses had not a word of language in common. As to the cooking of the turtle, it was dressed in a complicated manner before being covered with hot ashes and baked. Michaela wrote it all down in her diary. The appetizing odors gradually loosened tongues, and conversation became general before the turtle was fairly eaten. I watched one of our hunters patiently shaping a boomerang, a slow job of wearing away the hard wood, scraping off little shavings with the edge of a shell, which did not seem to be any too sharp. Mystery, how the Abo knows the exact shape which will make for the most efficient throw and cause the weapon to return to the thrower. Michaela is watching an old lady make some sort of a bag or a net. She makes the twine by rolling fibers together on her skinny old leg, and she forms stitches quite skillfully and evenly without a guiding tool of any sort. This bag was the most complicated object we ever saw the Abos make. One old man is having his shaggy mop of hair trimmed by singeing with a glowing bamboo coal. He also gets a shave. Notice, no brush, no soap, and no anesthetic. Most of the younger men are away hunting, the younger women collecting food. Only the less active older people are here, talking, telling stories of the past in the only written language they have, the language of pictures drawn in ashes or the sand. The only tools the Abos have are of stone, crude rocks fastened with rosin to a wooden handle. Almost the only material they use is the soft bark of the dazzling white paper bark trees, which they use as dishes and as trays. Some of the boys have gone hunting on their own and are now beginning to return. This one with a speared river crocodile almost as big as himself. Two proud little kids with a wonderful bag, each a flying fox. The big fruit-eating bats are prized among the Abos as great delicacies, and the little boys have done well. Soon a third flying fox is brought in. The older boys grab them and start a merry-go-round full of high spirits. But it's not long before the bats also are roasting in the ashes. The kids have lost their shyness now. They turn out to be quiet, pleasant, and with instinctive good manners. A party of older boys is practicing spear throwing, already showing considerable skill and accuracy. They have a wallaby on the fire, which one of them is speared. The wallaby game. This boy is the wallaby. The others play the part of the beaters and the hunters. Many of the boys' games are reenactments of hunting scenes. But for their favorite game, the boys work hard constructing a slide of slippery blue clay down the bank of the Billabong. The next day, I accompany the men on a wallaby hunt. The men are cutting new trail, but there is no hesitancy. We go some 7 miles, then the hunters scatter. Some build crude blinds of branches. Wallabies appear indeed to be plentiful. 4 wallabies is the bag of the party I have followed. Others have gone spearfishing, but have not been very successful. Still others have gone after brolgas. We see them return laden with the heavy birds. A small stick on a bed of dry wallaby dung, finely powdered. Another stick pointed, the point in a tiny dent. Now, with great effort and pressure, the upright stick is revolved rapidly. I am seeing fire made, native Australian fashion. For a long time, nothing seems to happen, but the operator is visibly getting very hot. At last, a little smoke is seen. The wood has blackened. A spark is there. The spark is blown to a glow, to a flame. I go back to join Michaela. She has gone with the young girls and the children to a clear, deep billabong. The kids are having a wonderful time. The girls are all good swimmers and full of fun. They want Michaela to join them, but Michaela wants them to show me a sort of rhythmic splashing they do, a sort of dance in the water, beating regular time. The Aborigines of Australia may be the most primitive people left on Earth. We found them intelligent, quick, full of humor, and most pleasant to get along with. In most of Australia, of course, they have become civilized and progressed greatly under painstaking government guidance and assistance. But the most primitive of those we met were not the least likable. Watch these girls playing the game of cat's cradles. A game, by the way, which seems to be known and to be played in amazingly similar fashion by all the primitive peoples on Earth, from the Eskimos of the far north to the Bantus of Central Africa or the Abos of Australia. See these eager, serious faces, intent, sensitive, deeply human. We felt no sense of foreignness at all with these people. We greatly enjoyed the Abos, and we greatly liked them. We hated to leave them. And I like to think that they also remember kindly their visitors from the outside world. Quite a few months have passed, and our little Jumpy is becoming a problem child. Jumpy has a devouring curiosity about everybody's breakfast. But Jumpy sneaks back to the table after everybody has left. No, that is not Jumpy's conscience giving him the reproachful look. Jumpy and Dingo are inseparable playmates. From our camp, we looked over an impenetrable mangrove swamp. Far out, a colony of thousands of the big flying foxes. But our most powerful lenses could not give us the close pictures of them which I wanted. Michaela and I decided to make the attempt to cross the swamp. I remember this experience as one of the worst in my life. The thick, knee-deep, slimy mud, alive with leeches and insects. The bruising, tangled roots seeming to reach out from all sides, unyielding, and over each one of which we had painfully to struggle. The stifling heat, heavy, steamy, like a hothouse. The swarms of mosquitoes and sandflies. And the stench of rotting vegetation mixed with the intolerable musky stench of the thousands of the giant bats. When at last we reached a clearing where the camera could be set up, we were near exhaustion. But there were our bats, climbing, fluttering, squabbling, turning upon us their intelligent black eyes, scratching their membranous wings and their furry yellow mantles with their uncanny claws. Back from Australia, seeing for the first time the pictures made during the trip, as I watched our Australian adventure unfold again before us on the screen, I kept waiting for these pictures of the flying foxes. They would have to be good to make me forget that eerie mangrove swamp. Well, here they are, and I shall leave you to be the judge. 2 days later, almost unexpectedly, we came to a road, and around the bend, the sea. We had completed our trans-Australian journey.